Hey everybody, welcome to Life is Beautiful. I'm Anthony, and today we would be doing an episode of This Week in Beer. But last week I kind of dropped the ball. There was a whole lot going on both in my professional and personal life where I wasn't able to actually get out last week's episode. So instead of This Week in Beer, we're going to be doing an episode of Last Week in Beer. There were a lot of very important stories that needed to be discussed, and I just didn't feel right glossing over them and just moving on. I do apologize that I dropped the ball like that. I do want to cover these stories and I want to continue. I just wasn't able to. It just wasn't feasible. So today's episode, I'm going to be covering everything that happened last week. Tomorrow, I will be releasing This Week in Beer, and then hopefully here on in the future, we're able to stay on schedule. Now, the first story, it's a bit controversial, not gonna lie. And not controversial as in a lot of people have different varying opinions on it. More like controversial in a way where one guy did one dumbass thing and then everyone else in the community kind of came down on him pretty hard. And rightfully so. Early last week, an article was released out of Great Lakes Brewing News, which is a publication throughout the Great Lakes area up in the Northwest that's partnered with several other publications and breweries to release news articles pertaining to that regional location. I do want to specify that this is in no way connected to Great Lakes Brewing out of Ohio. It's two separate things, even though some news stories might get in it. They're different, totally different entities. Really, I don't know how a lawsuit hasn't been filed about that. Anyways, last week, as I mentioned, Great Lakes Brewing News published an article pertaining to Irish and cask ales, which sounds pretty cool. I mean, how could that be controversial? Well, the author and co-owner of the publication, Bill Metzger, somehow, some way, took such a non-offensive topic and was able to turn the entire beer world against him. He starts off by saying, and please be aware that this is an article about cask and Irish ales, okay? Like most men, I struggle with my primal self. That's not a good start. It's genetic. Put in Freudian terms, the battle between my ID and my superego can be epic. And in this age of #MeToo, the dilemma has grown. It doesn't look like it's getting much better either. The pendulum has swung too far. One aggressive move and a man's career can derail. I wonder how self-aware he was while writing this. I feel the walls closing around me, my room to move shrinking. My instincts to bed every woman I see are reducing from a king-size mattress to a cot, the size of which I only remember from a tour in Iraq. Today's rules put men like me in an equivalent of a feminazi re-education program instead of ceding to my genetic makeup and behaving like the great seducer Don Juan. And this goes on for several more paragraphs before he even mentions beer in the slightest. Real ale is also generally lower in alcohol, with most examples hovering around 4% alcohol by volume. This enables the drinker to consume more. A lower alcohol is also beneficial in performing for a woman, something I'm genetically designed to do. God damn it. He goes on to talk about how Ireland and Scotland have a long history of not only making beer, but pillaging villages and raping women. And he also discusses how women need higher ABV beers in order to overcome their social anxieties and give in to their deeper seductive inhibitions. All right, I'm not really going to waste that much more breath on this actual article itself because it's trash, all right? It's plain and simple. It's just too much of a train wreck, and we could literally sit here all day talking about everything wrong with it. I just got a couple of questions for the author. I mean, 1, what the fuck? 2, what the fuck were you thinking? And 3, how did you not think that this was going to be the worst goddamn idea ever? Look, taking a step back away from whatever your thoughts and opinions are on equality, all right? It's a free country and you have the right to have whatever stupid thought you want to have, all right? That's what it is. But how could someone who is a beer journalist, a beer professional, not think that this is the worst idea? Like, in today's beer climate, we are already dealing with tons of sexual assault, sexism, misogyny. We are desperately trying to bring more women into the culture, all right? how is this benefiting beer or yourself in any way? To make things a little bit worse, the dude doesn't have a spine either, because a few days later, he went back and tried to backtrack and was like, oh, it's all just satire. I love satire. Satire is one of my favorite things to read. If you ever want a really good example, I highly encourage you. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's one of the best examples of all time. It was written about the selling and eating of children in Ireland during the Irish potato famine. And it's absolutely hysterical. It's biting. It's got the edge you're looking for in satire. And most importantly, for it to be truly satirical, it's poking fun at something, a topic, to drive home an issue. So if you honestly do think this is satire, which I'm not entirely sure you understand what the definition of satire is, I think you greatly missed the point of whatever it was you were trying to drive home. Anyways, the fallout was swift and just. The author lost his job, or he resigned. All right, he stepped away. He also parted with his ownership of the Great Lakes Brewing News Agency, or whatever the official title is. In addition, it's unsure if that publication is actually going to be able to continue, because a lot of breweries, a lot of businesses have decided that they are going to distance themselves as far away as they can from this, because it got a lot of headlines and it really stirred shit up, and I don't blame anyone for not wanting to be a part of that. Anyways, what I'm really trying to get at is our beer culture does have an issue. If you do not believe me, I've tried to have this discussion with people I've met out and even peers on YouTube, and a lot of them don't agree with me when I say that I do think beer culture has a pretty significant issue with sexism, misogyny, all that stuff. And if you focus on a weekly beer news segment like I've been doing for the past 2 years now, I've been able to amass a pretty sizable stockpile of sexual assaults, sexist tweets and rants, and so many other things that fall within this category. I do significantly think there is a problem. But after this article, I was thinking I'm just going to be able to chuck another tally up on this for a video I'm planning on doing in the future. But I was really, really happy to see how the beer community reacted to this. They really, really pushed back against this. They got results, and they stood up for something that they say they believe in. So I'm incredibly proud of the entire community as a whole. Good job. Keep up the good work. I just really hope that this is a significant learning point for the whole industry, and that we're able to better ourselves from this nasty situation. So moving on. Now let's take a little time to talk about some beers that were announced or released last week. First up, coming out of Gigantic Brewing out in Oregon, we are going to be getting 6 new beers that have been heavily inspired by the Hellboy comic franchise. Gigantic Brewing will be releasing 6 different beers throughout now till March 25th in honor of Hellboy Day from Dark Horse Comics, and each of the 6 beers are going to be themed around a different character from within the franchise. For example, the Hellboy beer is going to be a maple syrup and pancake beer. And if you are a fan of the franchise, if you've read the comics, you understand why that's absolutely hilarious, and I am extremely excited for it. Additionally, each beer will have a 6.66 ABV, except for one barley wine that'll be released from it, an English barley wine to be specific, which will come in at a 9.99 ABV. It's kind of funny. These beers will drop at a yet unspecified location in Seattle around March 25th, and luckily we will be able to see certain releases around the country as well. Now, one thing that I do find interesting is they said that there's only going to be 666 bottles of each beer. So I do think if they do plan on doing multiple releases around, it is going to be incredibly limited. So if you get the opportunity to get your hands on it, I would definitely encourage you to do so. Probably be a little bit of a collector's item in the future, even if you drink the bottle or drink the beer out of the bottle. Y'all know what I meant. As a big Hellboy fan, I am incredibly jealous that I am out of country and will not even be able to have a chance to get my hands on any of these beers. And With the reboot coming here soon, I don't know how I honestly feel about that. I hate that they snubbed Ron Perlman, but still I love Hellboy, so I'm still kind of excited. It would have been awesome to be able to get a couple of these beers and sneak them into the movie theater and drink some Hellboy beer while watching Hellboy. It would have been incredibly cool. So if you get the opportunity to get it, let me know what you think about it. I will just be sitting over here being hella envious. And keeping with the theme of demons and hell and beer, we got great news coming out of Colorado. Avery Brewing has officially released their homebrew clone recipe for one of their biggest, most hyped beers of all time, and that is the Mephistopheles Imperial Stout. Mephistopheles was one release out of the 3 Demons of Ale series that they unfortunately discontinued back in 2016 alongside of Samael and the Beast. And this beer is huge. It's coming in at a big boozy 14 to 19% alcohol by volume, depending on which vintage you're drinking. I think the one I had was around the 16 range, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2014-15, and I'm not gonna lie, it was so strong to put some hair on my chest, you know what I mean? But the downside was, if you never got to try it before they retired it, you know, it's pretty difficult to get your hands on unless you have a good friend with a deep cellar and who's willing to pop a bottle for you. So I was incredibly sad when they did retire this back then. But at the same time, Avery has been known in the past to release some pretty dang accurate homebrew versions of their beers, you know, at least the recipes for the consumers to be able to try their hands at some of Avery's most liked beers. And the fact that they were willing to release something as legendary as Mephistopheles shows how much they truly care about their customers. And, you know, they, even though they don't want to continue producing it themselves, they're still able to put that love and energy that they put into that beer originally out into the public. It's just being brewed by everyone else now. So I do think it's absolutely awesome news, and I do really give a huge tip of the hat to Avery over there for doing something so cool and listening to their fans' desires and needs. Now, for you homebrewers out there, this is going to be a pretty monumental task. I mean, brewing an Imperial Stout isn't the easiest beer to brew anyways. Now, when you're trying to hit those 19% ABV marks, it's going to be a serious challenge. So if you follow the link down in the description that I provided below, you will be able to go to Avery's blog where they actually list the ingredients, the processes, and just a little other tips and tricks to try to get this beer to turn out as best as possible for you. If you are up to the challenge, please let me know how your results turned out. I've been kind of on the fence. It's a big beer and it's going to cost a lot of money to actually try to replicate this and hit those target numbers. So I haven't made up my mind, but if any of you out there give it a try, please let me know, because I am hella excited to see some of y'all's takes on such a big ass legendary beer. So let me know how it goes for you. But jumping back into the news, we got 2 more stories that are feel-good stories that really warm your heart and really make you look at the beer industry as a whole in a very positive light, which isn't something you oftentimes get to do when you're covering like headline grabbing news. So when I get the opportunity, I definitely jump all over it. So the first one is coming out of Buffalo, New York, where several breweries have collaborated with Habitat for Humanity, and they went through fundraisers and they recruited all types of professionals in the construction industry and a whole bunch of volunteers, and they were able to construct a house from the ground up, from scratch, all on their own. Insanely cool. They are dubbing it the house that beer built, which is pretty cool. I want to live there now. The house finished construction earlier this year, and already it has been placed in the hands of a migrant refugee family of 8. I almost held up 7 there. 8. That's a pretty big family, and regardless of how you feel about the political mumbo jumbo on either side about the refugee crisis and immigrants into America or whatever, you cannot deny the fact that that is probably one of the hardest times in that family's lives, trying to come over, and it's probably hard for them to get a leg up and assimilate into American culture without at least some type of help. And it's super cool that beer was able to work together and do this for a family in need. So I do want to give a huge shout out to all of the breweries that participated in this. It is incredibly cool of y'all to do that. I mean, this is some charitable work that I haven't really seen anyone else come close to doing in this industry in the past several years. So pretty dang awesome of y'all. And each and every one of y'all deserve your own tips of the hat. And our last story is coming out of Texas. Not so much of a charitable feel-good story as much of a good pat on the shoulder to ourselves. After years of fighting, debating, and negotiating, breweries in Texas and beer distributors in Texas have come together and made a firm decision that they are going to allow the legal sale of beer to go from breweries in Texas. In an agreement between the distributors and the breweries, they have decided that breweries will be able to sell up to 2 cases per customer per day, which is a pretty decent amount, to be honest. Additionally, breweries will have to report their to-go sales numbers to the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, I think that's the name of it, who regulates beer sale or alcohol sales and taxation throughout the state of Texas. So there are some parameters, but it really doesn't seem like it's that tight. You know, there are a whole lot of other states that have to deal with a whole lot more bullshit revolving around antiquated blue laws than this. So I definitely think it's a huge step forward for Texas. Additionally, it's a huge step forward for the whole industry. Here's where that backpack comes in. Texas was the last state to authorize to-go sales from breweries. So finally, the United States has entered into a modern era of beer laws. You know, we are now at least one full step closer to being more modernized like the rest of the world. I do think it's incredibly awesome. I do want to give a huge shout out to everybody who put in so much hard work over the years in Texas to make this happen, because it's going to be so good for the industry as a whole. We've been seeing massive decrease in sales and everything like that across the board, across the entire country, big and craft beer. And when people are able to work together, I think everyone's going to see growth together. Everyone's gonna boom. Maybe in the shorthand, the distributors might not make as much money, but with that opportunity, I think more people are going to want to get into beer. Everybody wins. It's a win-win for real. Well, that's pretty much all I had to talk about last week. You know, it was a mostly positive situation for the most part. You know, almost every story was a real feel-good, nice, awesome story, except for that one jackass. But it all can't be perfect, you know. But I do want to apologize once again for putting this out so late, 1 full week late to be exact. And I just want to say, you know, I really appreciate all the support, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to do better and make this more regular and consistent. I keep getting worse at it, but I do have some plans. I just got to put them into effect. But thank you for understanding. Life gets busy professionally and personally sometimes, and unfortunately, this isn't my job, so it has to take a back seat to some more important things in life sometimes, you know what I mean? I'm sure y'all can all understand. That was Last Week in Beer. If you stay tuned, tomorrow I will be releasing This Week in Beer, covering all the news stories from this week. So hopefully you will come back and check it out and see that everything's still on track as best it can be, you know? It's a shit show over here. Thank you for watching, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe. Remember, every bottle has a story, and that life is beautiful. Cheers.